All right, and good afternoon, everyone. It is another episode of Business Acceleration Playbook, bringing you the plays you need to win in your business. And today I have co-hosts Jeff DeWaskin and Angela Buckley with me. And Ray is missing today. He had a prior engagement, but we miss you, Ray. And today we have guest RD Weeks. So I've interviewed RD in the past on Successfully Chaotic on my podcast, and he's a great discussion. I love his vibe. I love his story. So I'm super excited to have him on today. I'll go ahead and let you just say a little bit about yourself, RD, and then we will kind of go from there.
Yeah. So I'll go focusing with it being business focused. So I've been in the entrepreneurial journey now for over 6 years, and I've been through an array of different titles, you could put it. So I've gone from DJing to then event planning to marketing, consulting, to then conference organizing. And then from there, diving into, when it comes to the personal growth realm, being able to dive into coaching, and then also podcast host myself too, and then a traveler as well. So for me, a word that always comes up throughout the journey has been collaboration. I love to collaborate with others and being able to, from there, create some awesome new ideas and projects. And I love that variety aspect, and as well as being able to connect with other people. So through collaboration, especially when it comes to the pandemic time, connection is so important, and being able to dive deeper into that level of not just surface level, like, hey, what can you do for me here and there, but like really get into the heart of understanding, who we are as human beings and how can we connect on that deeper level. So throughout the journey, has been some amazing lessons learned and also insights that I've gained from mentors as well as others that I've talked to along the way. And so now where I'm at, like what I'm doing. So currently, being able to travel full time. So I'm right now up in Maine, with now being able to travel a little bit more up here for a few months. And also I support business owners and new entrepreneurs, especially on how to align your business goals with also your personal values and ultimately the vision you have for your life, so that you're able to spend, when it comes to time, being able to have more time to spend towards areas of fun if it's in your business, knowing what that is. And then also if it's on just personal life, being able to have more of that time freedom is what I'm focused in on, and being able to make sure that you're in alignment with your goals on both personal and business.
Absolutely. No, I love it. And I'm sure that Jeff and Angela kind of want to dive in and ask some questions, but I really love the part where you're talking about collaboration, because that's one of my passions as well. Is, I always tell people all the time that it's great to know who your quote unquote competitors are. But however, I am a big pusher of collaboration, because, everybody's not my people. Everybody's not your people. There's plenty of business to go around. And so I really love, that vibe. So Jeff, I'm going to have you go ahead and just tell people that may not know who you are, just a little bit about you too, real quick. And then if you've got any questions for RD, and then we'll go to Angela.
Sure. My name is Jeff DeWaskin. Nice to meet you. Hello, everybody. I am a digital entrepreneur. I have a podcast called Live from Detroit, The Jeff DeWaskin Show. That's more of a fun side, the pop culture, comedy, social trends outlet that I have. And then I have a startup called #Stampede, where we help companies build engagement tools for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, that help them create engagement with their fans and future customers, and then drive them to microsites to collect first-party data, which is becoming more and more important these days. So,
absolutely. So did you have anything you want to ask RD before we let Angela introduce herself, or do you want to
let Angela introduce herself, and then we'll dive in.
Then we'll go. All right, that works. Go. You go. Yeah.
Okay. My name's Angela Buckley, and I work with Creatively Efficient, sort of my side job hustle, what I enjoy doing, coaching and helping people really find the efficiencies in their business. So a lot of people talk about it as life coaching. I see it as efficiency, so that you can get more of it done, but also understanding that recovery and rest is an important part of that efficiency process.
And fun. That's what RD is talking about today. Yeah. So fun.
Super fun. Yeah, this is a person who literally registers for a race, buys the ticket on Wednesday, flies down on Friday, and comes back the next day. So
cool.
Well, and I know you and RD probably can talk a lot about that because he has what is the 50 miles? You can explain about that, RD.
Yeah. So 50K. So one of those ambitious goals is 50K in 50 states. So being able to go, I love when it comes to the ultra marathons. Distances, as well as any distance, really, just being able to go through completing a race, start to finish, and how simplistic that can be compared to life. And so for me, when it comes to fun, a big part of that is being able to go and dive into those fun activities, having that spontaneity, but also being able to create a plan and structure around that. And so big on making sure that we're making fun a priority in our lives, however that can shape up the day.
So I'm a big fan of saying that the discipline allows me to be impulsive, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't really planning on this race this weekend, but when I got an email in my inbox that said, come qualify for Team USA, I said, okay, bought a ticket, went down, did it, and came back and got myself a position on Team USA. But no planning, like I wasn't ready. I didn't turn in my best race time or anything, but the discipline from the years have allowed me to like take advantage of an opportunity.
How do you guys, when you're talking about racing, how do you guys feel about half marathons? I feel like it's the only thing that people are allowed to brag about when they only did half of something.
We talk about half Ironman, that's half.
Okay, well that's it. But you see more 13.1s on the back of people's cars than you do.
It's a really healthy distance. It's a really healthy distance.
I'm not saying it's bad. I can't run 13 miles. I'm just saying it's like if I was I just ate half a sandwich.
Wait.
I just watched half a movie. I watched half a movie.
Next stand-up routine.
I like that book. I read half of it.
Yeah. Well, I love
high five. I read half your book. High five.
Well, Jeff, I dug half a hole.
Exactly.
Well, I love that way of putting it too, because like for me, so a half marathon has a special place in my heart. That's the first major race that I had done was a half marathon, and so I didn't train for that one at all. In the standpoint of like really going through it in a proper way for my body, and so I went to like some extremes of what would be considered overtraining for it. And then like for the few months before it happened, I didn't do anything. So by the end of the race, I was like barely able to like make it out of there. Luckily I had my best friend there who drove me up. It was like on my birthday too. First race, I was like, oh, we're gonna go do this. And ended up being like, having him to carry me out back to the car, like barely stumbling over. So for me, it's like both like excitement of like actually completing that, but then also I think of half marathon. I'm like, my gosh, like I could barely walk after that. And like, ate so many bananas. So yeah, with it, I love the half marathons. So I'm big fan of it.
Great distance. That's how I found out I was pregnant.
Oh, really?
I PR'd in my half marathon, and the medics followed me across the line, and they're like, something's not right. And I'm like, I'm fine. I just PR'd. Like, it was a good day, right? And they're like, no. And I'm like, leave me alone. And then the next day I still wasn't recovered. And the next day. And finally my teammates called and said, you should probably go to a doctor. Like, this is definitely something more than just you ran. And they always are asking me, when you do distance, the cycles aren't always as rhythmic, right? So every single amount of time I would go, they'd be like, but have you in the last 28 days? And I'm like, no, but that's normal. And they're like, whatever, pee on the stick. And look at that. I was pregnant.
And you're like, oh, wow.
Were you, I have a question, important question. Were you full pregnant or half pregnant?
Boom,
maybe I was like,
it's just,
is it like 8/42? So is that 1/5 approximately? I was probably 1/5 pregnant.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there that I was like you, RD. The first marathon that I did, half marathon that I did not train at all. I was a trainer at the time, like a personal trainer, but I didn't train myself running. I was like, I work out all the time, work out all day, I do cardio all day, I'll be completely fine. And I thought I was going to die. I actually thought I was going to die, and I wanted to quit, but I didn't. I ended up doing one full marathon after that. You thought I would have learned my lesson from the half marathon I didn't train for, but I also didn't train for the full marathon. Almost died on that one. I couldn't walk for 3 days. Like, actually couldn't walk for 3 days. 3 days. Wow. It was terrible. I hate running now, though, but that's another story for another day.
You can seriously hurt yourself. I mean, they tell you if you're not really properly trained, run a mile, walk a minute, and like if you want to walk away. I mean, some people have to go into physical therapy running these marathons.
I lost toenails, but that was really about it.
I still got two purple toenails right now, going on like close to like 6 months of like another situation. I just didn't go well with the shoes. But
there's a lot that goes into it. It's kind of one of those things that I never really, because I was never a big runner. I was in track and stuff, but I never did appreciate it. I think, a lot of these things you can take business applications from it, because even in the business world, if you don't properly prepare for something, you won't properly train, you just kind of wing it. Sometimes you can get by with it, but sometimes it can cause detrimental problems. And I think that's the reason I really love taking personal applications and putting them into a business framework, is just because you can learn so many life lessons and business lessons from that. So I do want to kind of tap into, what you wanted to talk about, RD, just with fun and within the business realm. And also you had mentioned just, the digital aspect. I'll let you kind of talk for a few minutes on all that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll start off with, a key focus moving forward, more and more now is, how you're interacting with the digital world is what I call that. Ultimately it's entering into your digital devices and utilizing it for, if it's business purposes, personal purposes. But ultimately, with the pandemic, it's elevated that when it comes to, if it's Zoom burnouts, if it's just, having to have meetings, throughout the day, be on your screen, what is that doing for you? And what comes up when it comes to understanding how you're navigating the digital world is where do distractions come into play? And so ultimately, if it's your iPhone, other types of smartphone, you can get distracted through different platforms or just, checking email. And so really, a key focus that I always like to share with those that I talk to is understanding where you're at with your digital devices. Like ultimately, what is your relationship with them? And if you're able to dive deep into asking those key questions of how can I, each time I'm entering the digital world, or however I'm interacting with these digital devices, do I have an intention set before entering into it? And that's key, because if not, it goes back to like going for grocery shopping. At least for me, it's like if I don't go in with my list, I'm starting to pick different items here and there, throwing it in there, and then all of a sudden I realize, wow, it's like double the bill than what I was expecting to when I'm leaving. And so that you can think about that when it comes to the digital devices too, is we're spending sometimes double, if not triple, the amount of time on these devices for certain goals that we think we had set out at the beginning to accomplish, but then we get distracted with cool, funny videos or whatever else we like to do to spend some time on these digital devices and not focusing on what's going to move the needle for when it comes to the business. And then ultimately, how I'm feeling about those goals that I'm setting out to accomplish. So that's I definitely want to pause there, see if any questions come up too for any of you all when it comes to digital interaction.
Got anything? Angel looks like she's wanting to say something.
Yeah.
She's getting excited. Go ahead.
So I try not to be on my digital devices during the workday, but there's definitely a time I come home from a workout. There's that kind of cool down, not quite hungry yet, quiet time where I'm definitely Facebook scrolling. Okay. I'm not really, honestly, I could take a shower or do nothing, but that's my time to just kind of, it's wasting time. Mm-hmm. So there's no set goal except to be allowed to waste time uninterrupted, I think, for a bit. So sometimes holding that device in front of my face is sending my family a message of, okay, I actually get a little bit of quiet time right now. That's unproductive. Like, I get it. It's unproductive quiet time, but sometimes you also need that. Is that you, Jeff?
No. Sorry, I apologize. I'm wearing my workout. I ran an 8th marathon this morning.
Excellent.
I 3.1 miles.
Were you out there calculating that?
Well, your watch tells you everything you need to know. So, speaking of running, do you guys use Apple Watches? Do you guys?
Garmin all the way.
Well, I didn't know, but you can change when you're working out on your Apple Watch. You can actually, if you're running and then you're going to walk for a distance, you can switch it to walking mode, and it'll, or like if you were at the gym and then got on the elliptical, you could switch it to elliptical, and it'll track it as one thing. I may have always been a feature, but to me, like with the digital stuff, RD, I'm like, I don't even know anymore what's acceptable or not. It's so, I can't blur, the line is blurred between it just being something you do 24/7 and rudeness, it not, or whether it's rude or not. I don't even know anymore. You know what I mean? It's like you sit there. I remember in the beginning going to restaurants, and if like you'd see like some grandparents taking their kids and they put an iPad in front of them, and you'd be thinking, what horrible grandparents. You know, but now it's like, the kids have their own iPhones. I mean, when they're 2, and so it's, I don't know, like what Angela described, I do it all the time also, but then I also find myself doing it when other people are around, and it's like I think I'm addicted to it.
Yeah, well, so I will say too, you may hear some background noise of like lawn care right now going. I was like talking about timing, so that may come up here as I'm talking. But ultimately, too, it's understanding for you. Like, I mean, everyone's different in how they interact, and there can be certain levels of, when it comes to your digital usage, just understanding, hey, like, am I spending too much time on this? And if clearly the answer is yes, then being able to just be aware of that and understanding that, hey, like, there are tons of ways in which this device is trying to have your attention come in. If it's the social media platforms, if it's, checking email, if it's, that comes back to, depending on what situation, if it's clients, you're having to always respond back to clients. So this is absolutely like the key is understanding, okay, where am I at with that? And then, asking those simplistic questions of just like, am I spending too much time on this? If it's clear yes, then being able to understand, hey, this is an area I need to start focusing in and working on, and learning at like, okay, where can I spend less time? Where do I feel the distractions are really picking up for me? And yeah, absolutely. There, like, I know for me, there's a point where I was addicted, where I was doing this in a way that I would spend close to 8 hours in a row, and not even work related, but just watching a show, where it comes back to just like going through the motions. And so that was really sitting down and taking that step back and understanding, well, why do, like, just asking that question, why do I need this digital device? What emotional response am I looking to get from watching that show? Is that a way for me to decompress from the day? Is it a way for me just to step back and like really escape from all else that's going on? And if we can ask those questions and just ask them once, if it's once a day after a big bout of the day of like diving into your digital device, if you just step back at the end of the day and say, hey, why was I spending so much time on these digital devices? Then at least you're starting the conversation for yourself of, hey, where can I really create a much healthier relationship too?
And I think that's good advice. And I don't know if there is because I was sitting here thinking while you were talking about this, if there could be a one determined amount of time that's, the right amount. And I think that's something that obviously you have to kind of determine for yourself, in my opinion, on what's, enough, what's too much, whatever. But I think it's just like anything else. I think there's many good uses and good purposes for it, but I think anything in excess can be a bad thing. So I think you can take that to several levels on that. So what are some tips maybe that you would give somebody to, number one, figure out if they maybe are utilizing the digital world a little too much and not in a productive way, and how to kind of get out of that cycle? Is there some, tips that you could give on that?
Yeah. So some simple practical ones would be just that simple question. I mean, it goes back to one of my mentors, Brendon Burchard, that I love, that you may all know too, is, saying common sense is not always common practice. So just, you ask that question, hey, am I spending too much time on this? If it's an immediate, like what immediately comes up, yes or no, and you go from there. And we all have that capability and understanding. From there, going into the practical standpoints, it's, the keys that may have been heard, some of this, if not all of this, is stuff that you may all know, those listening, watching may already know, but just a great reminder is, one, checking it first thing in the morning. it's not going to help. It's not going to do anything but just drag you into that space if you're having an issue with it. So ultimately taking that time to in the morning, being able to have, if it's just 30 minutes, an hour to really step up, set the intention for the day, and understanding, hey, what are the goals that I need to accomplish when it comes to the digital devices? How is that going to incorporate within those goals I've set out to accomplish? And then ultimately, there's 2 laws that I've really hung on to and throughout the journey, and have been so instrumental in my relationship. And again, it's not, I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. So I do have those days where it's like, absolutely binging on a show that I enjoy. But it's just being able to have these 2 laws as a anchor, pillars coming back. Is one's called the Pareto law, and so being able to really understand the 80-20 rule, where it's like, hey, I'm spending, 20%, like where is the 80% of the time that I'm spending that are, the majority of the distractions. Also, what small actions can create 80% of the results for my goals too. So being able to just do that assessment, if it's on starting off, maybe it's just a daily, hey, where could I spend, the small amount of time that's giving me the 80% results in my business. Or it could be weekly, monthly. Creating that structure can be really beneficial. And then the other one too is Parkinson's law. So this one's just understanding us as human beings, that we will, no matter how much time we allocate towards something, we will use up all of that time. And so if that's for a project, saying, hey, I have 3 weeks that I'm going to set out to accomplish this project for, if it's a client or business partner, you will, usually the procrastination comes into play, whereas at the end, that last day out of the 3 weeks, that's when you're really like, I'm pulling the all-nighter or pulling the full day on this project now, and then you get it done, and then you feel like that sense of accomplishment, but then the stress levels, cortisol, all of that goes up, where you're just feeling so run down after the fact. And so with Parkinson's law, is being able to allow yourself to come into that, how we interact as human beings when it comes to the time allocation, and really starting to create your own structure of saying, hey, let me now start setting my own time limits on certain areas of the business goals, how much time I'm spending on my digital devices. What's great is now the phones, iPhones especially, is the one I'm most familiar with, but also other smartphones have that capability to put time limits that you can set for yourself. So if you feel, and you want to get to a place where you ultimately have that choice and that freedom of choice for yourself. But sometimes, and I know for me, there's a point where I did not feel I could do that on my own, and my own, just under, basically having to say, hey, when it comes to pushing through and just trying to set my own parameters, I usually break those. And that was a big moment for me to realize, hey, I do need these automatic time setters. Let me use them to say, hey, I'm only going to spend this amount of time on emails, this amount of time on these certain platforms. And that's a great way for someone that feels like I don't have that, that free will to be able to do that. Let me utilize what's already in these digital devices. And that's as simple as going to the settings. Go to the settings, seeing when it comes to time limits, being able to see that they have those buttons that you can just press, and it can be as simple as 30 seconds. But a great way for when it comes to smartphones is go to your settings. There is that ability to have the time limits that you can set for yourself.
Where is that?
Yeah, so that should be in settings. Which type of phone do you have?
I have an iPhone.
Yeah. So if you go to settings, and also make sure too it's updated, but there's screen time is the button, and that's below your
screen
time. So you can go there and you can start saying,
set time limits.
Yeah. And so there we go. Boom, Jeff. Yeah.
And communication limits.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put Angela on 2 seconds.
Love that just happened right there. Yeah, so cool.
My work phone my work phone's an iPhone, and it gives me a weekly update of my screen time, but I can only work on that phone. I don't do anything else on it. So it tells me how much time, I don't know, I must be reading emails during meetings or something during the week.
Yeah, well, and even too, like what can come up sometimes I know for me, as I got started to a point where I'm like, all right, I want to shrink that time as much as possible. It starts getting into that gamification where it's like, let me try to make this as small as possible. Yeah. But really, like, so there's levels of this. First is like getting an understanding of like, okay, what's the intention? Why am I going into this, using this? Second is getting a true 360 view as to where am I spending the time. As you said, being able to see how much time I am spending on the screen, and just even setting aside 5 minutes. It could be as simple as 5 minutes to check it and see what are the apps. Then, like as you said, it's like figuring out, hey, where am I spending that time? Was it the emails? Was it, hey, checking out this new video? Was it diving deep into social media platforms? So if we get that 360, then we can understand where is just the distractions. Like, where's my focus on business? Where's the distractions? And then the next level would be understanding, okay, forget about the time that I'm spending on this. Am I feeling, from just a sense of like internally, am I feeling like this is like the business goals and where I'm moving forward with my business, my personal life, however I'm using the digital device, is it feeling very much like healthy and rejuvenating for me to spend this time on it when I'm off it? So like when I'm off it, do I look back, do I feel guilty, or do I feel like excited that I spent my time on those digital devices? And that's really that next level of, hey, like instead of feeling the shame, the guilt of like I spent so much time on this, it's more, hey, I'm so excited that I had this time to spend with my digital devices to be able to accomplish the goals that is giving me, this or that, or hey, more fun, to be able to spend time more outdoors, whatever that looks like for someone. Because in the end, we got to define that for ourselves. There are, if it looks to, when it comes to your eye strains, like how, there are certain parameters for how much time is best to spend that studies are starting to really share, which is exciting. But at the same moment, we have to also define that for ourselves of what is a good amount of time.
Wait, so recently I went and got my reading glass prescription updated. And this weekend I was working on my dissertation after racing, Maria, and wearing my glasses. The end of the night came around and I had almost no eye strain.
Wow.
They are blue blockers, they're anti-glare blockers. Obviously they're the right prescription for me, but I was fascinated. I actually forgot I had them on, went to go to bed, and I'm like, wow, don't get me wrong, the frames were probably $40 and the lenses were significantly more, 3-4 times that. But I was really fascinated by the difference in eye strain associated with having the right glasses, the right anti-glare, and they're anti-glare, anti-fog, blue blocker.
How long have you had them for? I was trying to...
They just a few weeks. So I've had readers before, but I didn't have the ones that had all of the little extra accoutrements.
Yeah. And you can even get this without a prescription, because I don't wear prescription glasses, but in my office, I have blue blocker glasses that I'll put on if I'm doing a lot of computer work. And I even got them for my kids. Yeah. So, I mean, you can get them there. If you don't have on a prescription, they're $15, so they're not much.
Yeah. And I think there's a blue blocker screen, a setting on your iPads and stuff. We have those turned on for my son.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So, that's amazing.
I just throw caution to the wind. I'm like, my eyes.
He's like, I walk on the wild side. No, I mean, for me, I started out with my kids because I was worried about them on iPads, and even with school now, they're using electronics all the time. And even though, we keep a more dim setting on there anyway, I went ahead and got this for them. And then I was like, well, I might as well order some for myself too, because I've not ever had to have prescription glasses yet, and I want to kind of protect my eyesight. So that was the reason I got it. And I don't know that I noticed major changes, but for if I end up having to write for a long period of time, I do notice that change. So, I mean, I think those are all little good tips. And I want to go back to, RD, what you were saying earlier, just about the Pareto and Parkinson's. And I think those are two things that are two theories that I think are very important to kind of dig into. And I have utilized those kind of in my own business life and my professional life both, and I found a lot of benefits from doing so. Are those both something that you've used for a long time, or is it something that you kind of fell into because you noticed that there was a need in your life?
Yeah. Yes. I appreciate that question. That's a great question. And so for me, it was, it's been, a few years focused in on those two, but it's not how I started. So ultimately starting, it's, the busy, if I'm spending time doing something that I feel is moving the needle, and it actually may not in reality do that, but at least I feel accomplished for the day, or like, I did nothing. But then 6 months down the line, you look back and you say, well, what actually have I been doing? And so really that was when I started having this moment of realization of I'm doing a lot, but I'm also looking back not moving as far ahead as I thought, when it came to all the work that I'm putting into the business. And so that is really having that realization of saying, I got to go and figure out one, why is that? I realized I was procrastinating so much, a lot of the internal work of I wait till the last minute for a lot of things to try to get done. And so just being able to seek those out has been really awesome from online mentors and being able to then implement it. I think that's always key. Sometimes I know for me, I do this is I'll see something, read something, get excited about something, and then I don't do anything about it. And so I don't implement it. It's taking in the information, being so excited, ready to go, let's make it happen. It's going to be on top of the world. And then, fall flat and not actually implementing it and taking actionable steps of utilizing that within my life. And so those two have definitely been bedrocks of that anchor to be able to move forward. And it can be as simple as just utilizing one or two of those, first one task. If it's one task that week that you want to implement it, it doesn't have to be now I'm going to change my whole entire way of habits of what I'm doing to implement them for everything. But it's just saying, hey, where can I take it just one task at a time of implementing this new systems or two theories to be able to help increase productivity. And not fill it up with more work, maybe, because that might be the goal for someone to have, not spend as much time on work, but being able to just realize, hey, this is where I can save time to then allocate towards where do I want to put that? Those can be really powerful for someone in their shift of perspective. Absolutely.
And I think to be able to really figure out how to allocate your time at all, you need to kind of do a hard audit on your life to figure out. You mentioned earlier when we first started talking just about your values, your own personal values. And I think everything dials back to that. And you need to really take a hard look to figure out, the things that you need to do more of, less of, whatever, to be able to make your life the way that you want it to be. And, some of the Pareto method, just right on my head, the other method. Perfect. Thank you. Method, to be able to utilize those in your, planning your audit phase. I think that those are good ways to kind of figure out where you need to spend more or less of your time. And, for me, I ended up, bumping into those methods accidentally because I was looking for something to streamline my own personal audit phase of what I was spending my time on, because I knew that it wasn't being spent in such a way that was as productive as it could be. And that took a while. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was I would say probably a good year of just kind of trial and error on using both of those methods for me to figure out what was working for me. And that ends up being fluid. That's something that you have to constantly audit because your goals change, your life changes, kind of where you're at in the space of life changes. And so I really like utilizing, tools like this to be able to help figure that out.
Yeah, well, and what I definitely want to add to that too is understanding we need to have this realization of there's 1,000 ways to get the end goal of what you want or the vision that you have for life. So there could be someone saying, hey, this is going to be the best marketing tools. If it's looking at, how to create, if it comes back to video, production value, storytelling, how do I get them on, landing page to go through my funnels, whatever, if it's on the digital side, there's and any doesn't not just to digital, but to any aspect. There's 1,000 ways to get to your end vision, but the key is doing the work, being able to understand, what are the values? Like for me, I have 4: positivity, kindness, honesty, and then fun. And so those are my values, making sure everything I do is in alignment with those. And it's not, again, not perfect. There are those days that does not happen. But if I can just continuously remind myself, set those parameters. If it's for me, I do it a weekly check-in of saying, okay, let me look back on this week. What happened? What were the goals that I had wanted to set out at the beginning of the week? How did I do in accordance with those? How do I feel throughout that journey of reaching those goals? And especially when I don't reach those goals, am I still having fun and enjoyment? Because for me, I believe, it sounds cheesy sometimes, people say that, but it's like, enjoying the journey rather than the end destination. Because if we tie ourselves to those outcomes, majority of the time we will fall flat of those. And so that's where definitely the pain, the suffering, the feel like I'm on this grind for years on end, decades, maybe even on end, that can start coming up for people. And so just being able to have that awareness of, like, instead of chasing the shiny objects that might be coming up, how can I have my values and then my vision? And for me, vision for myself is to have time freedom, is to be able to spend it, when it comes to activities and experiences that bring me fun. Like, that's ultimately how I look at that for ultimately peace of mind. And so if we can use those as filters, then we start coming from more of a place of, hey, clarity of where the path is and how I'm moving forward on it. And then whatever comes into my from my external environments to me, I can pick and choose what I want to apply. That's ultimately going to lead me towards more and more, that vision of where I see myself in the year, the 5 years, 10 years, looking at that, outward planning. But that can be so transformational for someone to take that and start taking the small steps towards that.
Absolutely. So I don't know, Angela or Jeff, if you have anything to add on that.
No, it's good. So what is it? What's the process of working with you? What's that like?
Yeah. So right now, I work with individuals that are, as I said, new entrepreneurs that are starting into this world of wanting to spend less time on feeling busy and more time feeling fun when it comes to their business and the goals that set out to accomplish, and make sure there's that alignment. So I have. I usually work with people for a year, is how it looks when it comes to the coaching. And then also have that ability to, support on a smaller basis for a few months at a time, or a deep session. But really for me, I love working for a full year. So it's really diving deep into what does that year look like for someone, how to make sure that the priorities are set in a way that personally they feel good about that. And then business is just one aspect of themselves. So it's not putting your identity with your business, but being able to separate the two and knowing that the business is there to complement for who you are as a human being, and being able to create that awesome synergy where you're feeling in alignment and coming from a place of like, all right, I'm able to do this because I want to do that, not because I have to or I need to. But it's more coming from that place when it comes to setting out your goals and make sure that the business goals are in alignment with your values. But yeah, that's how it looks like. And then for me, I'm a host of the Something Fun show. So that's where it's being able to share some awesome actionable items on the mindset side, as well as just sharing some of the journey of right now what I'm doing of, being able to connect with others of what does fun mean to them, and being able to define that further, because we can all have our own definition of fun. Sometimes, we want to look at Merriam-Webster and say like, that's it. Like, but for us, it's like, we got to define that for ourselves. Of what fun is, and then making sure, for me, like a big thing I always want to do is be able to inspire that in others, as well as get reminded of that for myself some days of saying, hey, let's make fun a priority each day, and make sure that that's coming through when it comes to the actions we're taking.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes you can kind of fall off the wagon on that. I know for me personally, I'll do really, really good for a while at making, kind of my own fun time, time with my kids, whatever it may be, a priority that is right in line with my values that I've chosen. But then I'll find myself kind of falling off the wagon all of a sudden when I start to feel overwhelmed and stressed out. And then I have to take a step back and kind of audit what's going on and what I've said yes to on too many things and what I've added in my calendar that I never should have. And I have to kind of rewind the entire process and go over it again. Is that something that you feel a lot of people kind of need that tune up from time to time? Or is it just because I'm super ADHD?
Well, the key is to have the tune-up. Like that's the key. So it's not to look at it as like bad or good thing, but more like it's important because as you had mentioned too earlier, it's like life is changing and so it's evolving. That's the key, is to understand we need to be growing each and every day, and understand that change is a natural occurrence that's going to happen. And so what happened for me is I sent out a survey to close connections, those I've worked with. It was a little about over 30 people, of asking what is fun for you. What does that mean for you? Where are you at on the priority of it? Where are you at of like feeling how it's currently, in your life, where it is currently from a scale of like 1 to 10. And, this was during, still like when it comes early on in the pandemic. And it was interesting, like 3 main pieces that came out of that, that, I feel really helps to continue with that idea of tuning it up is, the key was, 1, being present. So being focused and present as to the task that you have at hand. And then from there, new experiences, it was the other one. And then the third was an activity, and making sure that activity, a big part of that is being able to continue that tune up and reminder of, hey, if it's, and we have all our different areas. If you're just starting off, maybe it is daily, of like the daily tune-up, like, hey, how did this go? Like, let's dive really deep. Maybe if you have a little bit more experience of that, it's like, it looks like a week or a month, or it's every quarter. And then sometimes 6 months. Like for me, just specifically as an example, because just to share my own experience. So for me, it's a weekly check-in tune-up of, hey, like, what right now is feeling in alignment with fun? Do I have that time that's allocated? Let me review back with all that has happened. Sometimes like the crazy weeks, or it's just like, that was crazy. Like, let me take a step back, and giving ourselves permission to do that, where it's not feeling guilty or shame, but ultimately feeling like, hey, this is just, this happened. Let me step back from it and understand, like, I can make a change for how it looks the next day, the next week, the next month, or, years to come.
And I think it's even more important to do it after something, like you mentioned, like you had a bad week or a crazy week or whatever. It's more important, in my opinion, to take the step back after that, to kind of redirect your actions, or just kind of to take some time to rest and recoup, a little of both. Because what ends up happening, and I'm saying this from experience, is that if you are coming right out of a stressful situation, you just end up reacting to everything until it gets so far down the road. You have not allocated your time wisely for so long that you end up in kind of a worse mess and more stressed out. So, I mean, I think that those are good points to make, that, there may be certain times where, even if you're on a, weekly checkup or a quarterly checkup or whatever timeline you set for yourself, that after a time of a stressful situation, that it's a good idea to, no matter what, just kind of do a quick audit of why that happened, what you could have done to maybe avoid some of the stressors or whatever. And I think those are, great tips for people to kind of remember, because, I mean, stress is inevitable. It's just, that's how it goes.
Well, and also too, like, we really understand who we are when it comes to those stressful moments. It comes to those key decisions of like, am I going to stick with my values or not? We've all had those moments where it's just like, what do I do in these really difficult situations? And the key is, when it comes to change, it can either happen to the point where it gets so painful that change has to happen. If it's in the business, like the business has just been struggling, you're getting burnt out, you got to make the change. Finally, it hits you. If it's, physically, like it happens, or, when it comes to just emotionally as well, like, that there is that point where that change needs to occur. If it gets to that point of just so much pain, or it's, hey, we can create the structure to allow for that change to start to form in a much more, peace of mind, not so much peace of mind, but much more in alignment with where we're wanting to go. If we can create that structure around it, and that can allow us to really start moving forward at a much faster pace too, rather than, let's say, through conversations I've had where it's, 30 years go by and you look back and you say, what did I just do with my life? That was not the direction I wanted to go. I was doing that to prove to someone, to get acceptance from someone else, to be able to say to my family, like, hey, I'm here to be able to be the provider, whatever that is. That story we make up, like, the key is we don't want to have that situation where we look back and we're like, what did I just do with my life, where I feel so guilty or shameful of what's happened for the past decades. And so that's important, just to have that set up for structure.
Jeff, do you have anything to add? You look like you're simmering. Are you simmering?
I was just listening.
Just listening. Oh, that's your listening face. Okay. I got that noted now in my mind.
This is my listening.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Is that better?
All right. That's good. That's good. That's very, that's good. That's very thoughtful.
There's an Austin Powers going on right there. Yeah. I love that.
No, I mean, I think those are good points to make. And I think far too often people let it go too long. I've had that experience. I'm sure most of the people that'll listen to this have had that experience at least once in their life. I tend to be the kind of learn the hard way type of person to where I've had it more than once. I'm the type of person I have to fall on my face multiple times before I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So, I think that, for people that are kind of out there listening and maybe they're curious on how they can kind of, do an audit on their own life, their business life, their, fun status, all the things, what would be the first steps to being able to maybe work with you on that? Do you typically do a consultation, like a discovery call to figure out kind of where they're at? How do you typically do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the best way if they're looking to just start off with like, hey, how can I make fun much more of a priority in my life would be they can, connect with me on Instagram at rdweeks50. And they can just send me a direct message. If you'd like, you can send me a direct message. And then from there, I'll send you over a fun survey that's much more in depth of figuring out where you're at when it comes to fun in your life. And it's just, a simple one that you can take what you want from that. It's a survey of looking back as to how you answer these questions, but it doesn't, it can be just a little bit of an influence. But then if they want to, if you really want to dive deep on your own into just, starting the process, internally, it's first writing out, just 2 lists of what are activities that do not bring me fun. And the first is you got to define what fun is for you. So does that mean, excitement, like exciting activities, exciting adventures, travel, what is fun? And what feeling does that evoke for you? And once you have that, then you can put, okay, in this category, what are the activities that do not bring me fun? You can break it. You can make it as broad as just like in general, write down all the lists, or you can make it as specific as with business. What are the activities? With family, like what are the activities? With my personal health and wellness, what are those activities? And you do that for the don't, and then from there, because it's easier to figure out what we don't want, and much harder to ask the question of like, what do we actually want? And so you can start off that way to get it flowing. And then transition over to what is it that, I do, the activities that do bring me fun. What are those? And then from there, it's understanding, okay, that's that first overall step. And then from there, it's like, how can I start implementing those activities within my life? And, usually we at times at first don't give ourselves enough credit, but we do have those answers. It's just being able to take, again, maybe it's just 5 minutes, but taking that 5 minutes to just reflect upon that. And it doesn't have to be, one day I'm going to figure this all out. It usually doesn't happen. Rarely. It's just being able to say, hey, 5 minutes, like this day, the next day, the next day, the next day. Let me do that for 15 days. Let me then go from, 15 days to 30 days and just keep asking that question until you're able to unravel that. If you want to go much faster, then that's where, again, working with me or someone else that can help support that. Again, there are others that are saying, hey, when it comes to time freedom, the key is being able, if like I always recommend a coach. I have 2 coaches right now. So I highly recommend it when it comes to that, or if it's on the, consulting side as well, when it comes to your business, it's great to have someone have a different perspective. I believe in that and wholeheartedly believe that can help speed up the process. But again, if you just feel, hey, I want to do this on my own, that's a great place to start.
And I think those are all great tips. Angela and Jeff, do you have any questions for RD on any of that?
No, it's awesome. Everyone should go find the fun.
Everyone
Go run do everyone encourage you all to run a full marathon?
Yeah.
That's not fun for me. It's fun for some people, but it's not.
Don't settle.
Don't settle.
Yeah.
Don't settle for half.
Yeah. So it's interesting too, because something came up too as you were saying that is like, it doesn't have to, also with fun, it can be, like sometimes we feel like this grand gesture of fun too. Like, hey, I'm going to take that trip I've always wanted to. Like, that's going to be fun for me. But it can be just the small tasks of like, hey, like, for me, paper origami is something I've just picked up recently on the travels where it's like, let me go make some paper origami. And that for me is so much fun. Like, I get that same level of fun as going on an adventure for a weekend, which is just interesting to think about in that way. But it is a truth where it can be also something, smaller on a daily basis that you do.
So how did you learn the paper origami?
YouTube. So talking about when it comes to digital screen time, being able to go up there. And I mean, it's been awesome just to get some instructional video. Like one I made was a dog. I didn't realize how many ways you can make a dog through paper origami. There's so many. It's crazy. It's like crazy. So I do that as a gift. Like that's my thing now with traveling is I do it as a gift wherever I go for people. And so like someone, like I asked them what their favorite animal is. And one said dog. And so I looked that up. I'm like, man, my gosh, there are so many endless videos as to how to make different styles when it comes to the dog.
Yeah, I can remember I made one in school. I don't know, like junior high. I don't know that I am that patient to do that on a regular basis. It's like I have a friend who loves to do puzzles. For me, that is not enjoyable. It takes so long to sit and do a puzzle that you know what it's going to look like. The picture's on the front of the box. That's not fun to me.
Not only that, you have to clean up when you're done.
You do. And it's like you spend like 4 days putting this together to make the picture that's on the front of the box. And then you just like break it into the box. And I'm just like, I don't know. It goes back to what you were saying though, RD, just about defining, what is fun to you, and with that said, there are times that I do things, with my children that I do not find enjoyable, but I'm doing it with them because they find it enjoyable, and I think that's important to kind of know, obviously, if you're in a relationship or, if you're going with a friend or like my mom's idea of fun is definitely not my idea of fun. Like Mother's Day this weekend, I'm probably going to have to go do her ideas of fun, which is not mine, but, those are okay too. It just ends up being like a question of, again, time allotment and being able to schedule all those things in. I think that's kind of the overview.
Yeah, I think too, you have a great point when it comes to that of like understanding that sometimes immediately that activity may not bring may not bring fun to you, but if you can, as a great way, as a tool to frame it, it's saying, okay, if I really love or care this person, for this person that we're going and doing this activity, I'm gonna get into the mindset of like, if they're excited, like that makes me excited. And that's a great way to frame it, to reframe it for the situation that you're walking into where then it's like coming from a place like, this is awesome. Like I'm having a great time because they're having a great time too. And that's feeding off of each other in that way, which I think that's so important to highlight too. Because we get caught up in like immediately it doesn't feel good. But you don't realize the bigger picture of what's happening too.
Angela, you were going to say something too?
Something exactly along those lines. I think at that point, it's not so much, maybe the activity isn't fun, but the time spent is fun. My grandma loved doing puzzles. Guess what?
We did puzzles,
and I love spending time with my grandma. So that's what we did, because now Thanksgiving, you just think about, we're going to go do a puzzle. It just belongs to the tradition. And I would never sit down and do a puzzle on my own, but it belongs to the tradition. So
absolutely.
And it brings a warm memory as a result of that. So there is some element of fun associated with it, or warm memory. Maybe that's not fun, like however you want to bucket those. Maybe it's gradations of fun.
Yeah.
But
no, I'm the same way.
It's definitely pleasurable.
Mm-hmm. Because I've done plenty of puzzles. I would not do them by myself, but I've done them with other people, and they're enjoying it. So I'm sitting there, doing it. So,
Move the piece
and the key too is just, again, as we've talked about this a few times now, is just defining that for ourselves. Like there could be those levels of gradients that we think of fun, and that can be something to take in. But the key is asking those questions. And being able to say, just continue to dive deep into the fun lifestyle is what I like to say with it.
Absolutely. And I think there's business fun, because, sitting and writing, pieces of content, I wouldn't consider a fun activity, but in my business, it's actually part of the things that I like. So my definitions of fun within my business is going to be different than what Maria wants to do on the weekend during her free time. fun. And I think I think it's important to kind of define those things. And I think, at the end of the day, the biggest thing is to kind of allot some time and allow sometimes to define these things for yourself and to, we mentioned this several times at this point, to audit, like where that time's spent. Is it being spent in the ways that is aligning with, our idea of fun, our idea of values, our idea of, what's going to move our business forward, or whatever the case may be. And taking that time to sit down and really kind of plan these things, for me, that's been, pivotal, because it was something that I just kind of like glazed over before as an afterthought. But it was only when I really started allowing that time to sit down and figure out all those things that I really started seeing some progression and everything.
Yeah. Well, and also what comes up as you're saying that too is as you said, for finding the time, sometimes people will say, hey, I had no time. Like there's no way to make this happen. And, it's just understanding, hey, like that could be the set, definitely empathize with that of like, I for sure understand that, where it can be a really high feeling of overwhelm. If it's with, having, the kids to deal with, if it's, then got like, this business over here, then it's like, all right, the pandemic just happened, a lot can come into play. So a great, and you all may have heard of it, those watching and listening may have heard of it too, is habit stacking is a great way to ease yourself into that, where it's finding, okay, what habits am I currently doing? If it's, making coffee in the morning, if it's, at the end of the night, journaling, I do journaling, or if it's, time for prayer, whatever that is, being able to understand what are those habits where perhaps I can just add on this extra, minute to 5 minutes of reflection on, hey, how am I feeling when it comes to this word of fun, and how can I start that conversation of fun in my life? And so it's being able to utilize that tactic of habit stacking could really help someone too.
I love habit stacking. I feel like I could talk an entire hour on habit stacking. That's a great point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And batching. Those are mine.
Batching. Yeah. That's all about batching. So good stuff. Jeff, you have anything before we get ready to wrap this up?
No, I think we're good. This was
RD, tell us how to get a hold of you. If anybody out there is interested in working with you, what should they do?
Yeah. So the best way will be Instagram. So for social media platforms, Instagram is the best one for communication. And again, it's at rdweeks50. And just send me a direct message. Love to start the conversation and connect. And appreciate again the opportunity to be on here too with you all. It was awesome, and love the energies too. So it was great.
Thanks, RD.
Great conversation. I appreciate it. And thanks, Jeff and Angela, for helping co-host this week. And we will be back next Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for another episode of, forget what show I was doing, Business Acceleration Playbook. Took me a hot minute. I do a lot of shows. So you can join us there. Next week, we should have Jeff, Angela, and Ray all as co-hosts, and we will be putting out some information on who will be the guests. So I don't know if you, Jeff, Angela, you want to tell people where they can find you real quick, and then we'll go ahead and end.
On Twitter at Bigmacher, BIGMACHER. That's the best way to get a hold of me, I think.
All right.
Angela Buckley, probably at Instagram at Creatively Efficient.
All right. And then till next week. Thank y'all.
Thank you.